Honestly, no idea. So guys, I went to Lowe's and I got some beams. I ended up having, they rang me up for 5 beams, but I got 4 at 6 feet long, 4 at 3 feet long, and 4 at 2 feet long. It was only $62, including nails and the handsaw that I bought. And I'll explain that later. So I'm just starting by clearing out my area and making space. My apartment is very small, so I had to move some stuff around in order to build this. Nowhere to build it outside, and honestly I was not going to get it back up the steps. I put this black cover down just as like a tarp, and here I am just measuring the ones that I got and showing you that is 4 at 24 inches long. These are 4 at 72 inches long, and this is 4 beams at 36 inches long. And this is a saw that I bought and the nails that I bought as well. I'll put it in the description, but I did use some 10" by 3 1/2, as well as some 8 by 2" wood nails. I'm not very savvy with construction, so please forgive me if I explain things incorrectly, but I'm using my neighbor's power drill. Shout out to Haley. And she had a bag with screws in there as well. I'll have to measure them and insert pictures, but those really came in handy too. So I'm starting off with my tape measure, and I'm kind of drilling measured but yet still arbitrary holes at the bottom and the sides of the frame so I can insert the drills. I'm using pilot holes. Out of all the videos that I watched, everybody recommended using pilot holes before you drill so you don't crack your wood, so I highly recommend that. But I'm marking at, I believe it was like the 1 inch and the 2.5 inch mark. Honestly, my tape measure is in the other room, so I can't verify, but essentially I was picking a spot that seemed kind of center in the beam to mark and drill the pilot holes. Ideally, I should have maybe used like tape or something where I could have a set spot on each side so I could drill front and back of the beam as well as the inside and make sure it was spot on exact. But I was being kind of lazy and honestly don't have a construction bone in my body before this, so I was learning as I was going. So I'm drilling those pilot holes in the front and back of one beam and the bottom of another and connecting it for all 4 corners. Then I'm using these brackets that I bought. They were only like $1 or so. Honestly, I don't know. Again, these are like the small nails that my neighbor had in her bag. They were probably like only 1 inch long or so, and they were pretty difficult to put in. I don't know what it was. Maybe like they were running into the screws from the base of the frame, and it was more difficult for them to go through. But I really had trouble with this part, so I am looking to, even though my frame is standing and ready to tuft, it's a little wobbly, so I am looking to replace those brackets and find some that are a bit longer or something better to brace the corners. But still, I was very, very proud. Honestly, I've been wanting to make this 6-foot long frame for years, but I've just, out of laziness and just doubt, I have not made it. So I was very proud to make it this far. So this is my very ghetto way of making diagonals on my my beams. I'm taking the 3-inch beam, the 3-foot beams, and I need to make a diagonal. Now my friend was like, "Oh, Allie, why don't you look on Amazon and buy a personal handheld saw?" Well, because I didn't think of that, honestly. I was just like, oh, this is a $6 saw. I honestly didn't even think it would work. I was kind of laughing because I'm like, is this a real saw? Is this like a toy? It's not a toy, but it was giving fake when I bought it. So I really had doubt that it would actually work. It did take a lot of arm power, and I was like, this is a joke. I'm like, do I take my hair down? Do I put it up? Like, I was just stressed before even starting. And please do not do as I do as I say. Don't saw like I did. The body positioning, it was awkward, it was random, it was unsafe. And that's why I was so over it, y'all. I was contemplating everything. So the next one, I kind of made this like, I don't know, starter line to kind of get some tension going. And then I was able to saw easier. And I put it under a support beam so I could kind of lean it against it. And the frame was falling and wobbling, and I was having a hard time, y'all. This was very difficult to do alone. But I got it done, so don't doubt yourself. So now I am realizing that my one diagonal on my 3-foot frame will not suffice. And honestly, I think I was just distraught by realizing. So I moved on to something else. So I took the 3-foot beam, the other one, and I drilled a hole in the middle on both sides. One for the pilot hole, one for the screw. And then I took the 2-foot beam and I put it in the center. This would be the foundation of my leg, the bottom part that's standing and the stick of the leg. I did end up turning it sideways because I couldn't figure out which way I wanted the leg to face in the center or how to do the feet for the frame. It was very, very challenging for me because I honestly assumed that Lowe's and Home Depot would cut wood at diagonals, but they didn't. So I kind of panicked and just told him, oh, 4 beams at 3 feet and 4 beams at 2 feet. I had no idea what I was talking about. No idea. So I kind of just had to go home and make do with what I asked for because I was not going back. So here I am just literally sitting there lost and contemplating everything. And then I just move on to the other leg and do the same thing because I was honestly trying to buy myself some time before I had to face that saw again. So in these, I am using the 10-inch screws, and I already did one leg, so here I am just showing you the other. So when I cut off the first diagonal of the 3-foot, I got this little triangle extra piece that I use as kind of a bracket base to add some stability to my leg on one half, since I'm only adding the diagonal long piece on the other half. Now I measured it, not the best, by putting it up to the other one and cutting with the saw. So now I have diagonals on both ends of what was the 3-foot piece of wood. And technically I could have used a 2-foot piece of wood because I didn't use those, but you know, we're just learning as we go here. So this was not cut well. It was a little too narrow, so I did have to trim off another piece. I don't even think I measured it. I think I just started trimming it. So this was not very technically skilled. Very beginner. But it worked. I then used my pilot drill stick to drill through the top and bottom of this angle board. And I know I'm not holding it the best, but look, I was avoiding all fingers and important body parts. So then I'm taking that 8 or 10-inch screw and drilling at a diagonal. And I think I ended up just using a hammer for the bottom part because it was very hard to drill it. The legs are good enough. And my screw ended up, or the electric screw ended up dying. So here is what we're left with. This was actually a whole entire week later. I was so sore the next day from that saw. Oh my gosh, I was sore honestly for like 4 days. Not even lying. So I had to take down my hair, recoup, rearrange the house, and then come back to this a whole week later. So I was trying to drill pilot holes into the leg, the frame, like the outside of the leg. But the screws were not going in. Like, I drilled pilot holes on both sides of the leg, and then I tried to drill pilot holes on the actual frame itself, the outside of the frame. It was falling, it was stressing me out. I was holding it up with shoe boxes. Like, Y'all, I was not in the mood for this. I even tried to use hammers at one point, which hammer and nail, which I would not recommend because it was splitting the wood. So here I am just over it. And I just could not get the screws in. I couldn't get the hammers out. The legs were the hardest part for me. Because I thought that I would have a different design, and I kind of had to just work with what I had. So then I had the bright idea to try the inside of the frame, and that was much easier. So I ended up using 3 screws that I kind of positioned in a V shape, one at the top on the outside, one in the middle on the other side, and one at the bottom, and I'll show you again here. And I had to buy new screws for these. These were the 8x2-inch screws that were for wood. I'll insert a picture, but the 10-inch screws were way too long, and they cut through and they were sticking out. That was it. I just kind of showed it in the frame, but again, I'll insert a picture. But yeah, I had to get some 8-inch ones that only went through 1.5 of the beams because there are 2 side by side. So it was thick enough that it went through one and didn't go through both fully. And excuse my explanation, again, I'm not construction savvy, so I'm just explaining this the best that I could. And here I am just kind of explaining what we got so far and some of the problems that I noticed now that it's standing. Okay guys, this is not bad considering my struggles. So I was doing it this way, putting both the legs here. I realized I have to put the tacks on and it would be hard to pull the fabric. So I'm going to put the tacks on here this way. I need better, longer braces for the corners. If you can see here, I couldn't get it in. And this one, there's a gap here. I don't know. This here isn't flush enough. So I couldn't get that there. So that's something to work on. However, it's not terrible. There's blue. Yo, this is for beginners, okay? This is for beginners. So even though there are some imperfections, I am moving on because that's life. Here I'm taking the tacks, the carpet tacks, and you have to face them outside. You want all of your arrows pointing away from your frame because you have to grip the carpet on and have it tension. So you kind of want them, you want, like when you see it, it'll make sense. Don't have the spikes facing downward or inside of the frame. Have them facing away. And it's so funny, I grabbed a knife to cut the tack, and then I'm like, wait, I literally have a saw. Because I saw someone else on YouTube use a knife. They were like, oh, it's super thin and easy to break. Just cut it really firmly with a knife, and literally forgot I bought a saw. So it definitely came in handy. There's like 1.5 carpet tacks are used for each of the frames. So I used 5 total, and so that's only like 2 packs. And they were super cheap, only like $1.50. Honestly, when I bought them at Lowe's, they were trying to tell me that they were discontinued and they could not be purchased, and I literally had them in my hand, and I'm like, please. So then they just charged me like $1 for them. But they were only $3 to begin with, so I appreciate them for working with me. So here I am, all finished. Again, it's not perfect, it's a little wobbly, but I was very proud of this. This took a long time. I took this from my Tuft the World tufting frame, and it's just a threader for the yarn. I used tape this time, like I mentioned earlier, and because the Sharpie was still kind of bleeding, I just stuck it very ghetto on the frame. Again, you can use a tape measure, you can do this more technical. If you're lazy like me and you're spent a week more or less doing this and want to get it over with, you can do it this way. And this was already pre-made, but I'm sure you can buy some keyholes, buy a thin piece of wood, and add this yourself if you don't have it. I know I shouldn't be holding it like this, but again, just doing my best here. I honestly did not add the clip of me finish it because I put it the wrong way. I had it facing the inside and had to unscrew it and face it on the outside. So anyways, it's done now. We're good. I made sure to vacuum very well because I didn't want any splinters. I do have a little pup running around, so as you know, I didn't have like the black tarp down that well when I did the feet. So just cleaning up a bit. Here's my old frame from Tuft the World in my kit, and I attached that one to my desk if I need it. So I'm so happy with my rug. It was well worth the hard work, and I just cannot wait to tuft on it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned some tips, learn from my mistakes, and I'll catch you in the next video.